Welcome to Plant-Based on Fire, the podcast that ignites your passion for plant-based businesses. Real Men Eat Plants is proud to host this show, where we shine a spotlight on the latest and greatest plant-based companies making waves in the industry. From startups to established brands, we'll explore what sets these businesses apart, what challenges they've faced, and what their vision for a more sustainable and ethical food future looks like. So if you're hungry for some fresh insights, inspiring stories, and a healthy dose of entrepreneurial spirit, then join us on Plant-Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plant-Based on Fire, where we talk about plant-based businesses and their inspiring stories to thrive in the industry. I am your host, Brian, and joining us today is Paul. Paul is a heart disease survivor from Detroit who founded the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group after a transformative journey to health through plant-based nutrition. He has, I believe, over 8,700 members in the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group and promotes a nutrition-first approach to medical students, corporate audiences, and just bottom line prioritizing a well-being and productivity through the whole food plant-based practices. So welcome, Paul, to the show. How did I do on your intro?
You did a little bit above average.
Good.
You know, that's not bad. Not bad.
Any highlights that you want to hit for me that I missed? Or
I would say we got about 150,000 social media followers, 21,000 people on YouTube. Our membership is close to 300, and our email list is about 14,500. So that kind of shows the kind of following that we have across the country.
Absolutely. I think even across the world to a degree, too. I hear you were just talking with a few people in Australia last week and stuff. So I want to unpack like the journey. Like everybody who has a plant-based business doesn't say, oh, I'm going to make millions of dollars by going to this plant-based business idea. But like everybody has this story of how they've changed their lives and they're shifting towards this kind of a lifestyle. So what was kind of your journey that brought about the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group?
Well, thank you for asking. And, you know, it's funny, my journey started when I was like a 10, 11-year-old, because in my family, it was about my dad and his three brothers. And during a 3.5, 4-year period, 3 out of 4 had to have bypass surgery. And unfortunately, 2 of them died on the table. One of them went to a mental institute after. And it was X amount of years later, my dad had quadruple bypass. And it was the only time I could remember seeing him cry my whole life. So it changed the dynamic of my family. And then, you know, I could kind of like fast forward. You know, I was a workoutaholic, and I'm gonna bring this into play real early and quick. I'm gonna show you what I used to look like.
Okay.
Let's see. Here we go.
There it is. Wow.
Okay. So that was me. So what was me was 235 pounds. I was a power lifter. I would be athletic. I'd be running, doing all these kind of things. And you know, my theory was simply, I'm just going to keep working out, and that will offset gluttony of food I was putting in me, because you know, my family's life, my life was built around food.
Yeah.
So as I hit my late 20s, cholesterol started climbing. Went to the doctor, get the physical, and I think it was in the like 300s. And my doctor at that point, and think about it, it's 30 years ago, would say, well, just eat skim this, skim that, and then, you know, I could put you on Zocor. That was my first medication. I'm like, okay, well, you know, trust my doctor, right? Trust your doctor. Unfortunately, about 2 months into it, I got the side effects, literally could not walk. He said, you're getting the muscle enzyme side effects, get off it. 2 days later, I was okay. Then he put me on Lipitor. Remember, back then, there were 3 choices, Zocor and Lipitor. 7 months later, side effects. Then he put me on Pravastatin. Pravastatin I took is the lightest of all the cholesterol medications. He gave me the max amount and got my baseline down to about 280. And he looked at me saying, well, I think we can manage it at 280. Okay, so again, not having any idea what nutrition was or anything about plant-based nutrition at that point, I continued my life until I hit 54 years old. And I woke up one day and literally, you know, how they say it's like an elephant on your chest. So true. I wake up and I'm like, whoa, something is really wrong. I would just lay in bed for a little bit of time and go away. So I conducted my life. And then it would maybe crop up at night a little bit. And again, not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but I kept quiet. And as long as I could function during the day, I could put up with some pain and suffering in the morning and at night, really not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Finally, I was at a meeting one day about 2 months, 3 months into this angina journey, and I had to leave the room. I was sweating. And I said, that's it. I went to my doctor's. Again, I was all by myself at this point. I wanted to see what he thought. He did a series of tests and got me immediately over to a cardiologist locally, and they did all the batteries of tests up to a heart catheter and a heart biopsy. So, but the cardiologist said, well, I've been practicing for like 30 years, and I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to probably need either, you ready for this, a immediate bypass surgery or a heart transplant. Ooh. I'm like, whoa. He says, but let's schedule the heart catheter. So I scheduled it was like a week or so later. On the way home, I said, I've just got to tell my wife, I am one of the lucky ones. I've been married for 25 years. My best friend, and I'm deeply in love with her, have been for 25 straight years. Never lost a day. And I had to take her out of her office, go into a conference room. I'd share everything I told her. I told her I just didn't want her to worry about it. She kind of like, what are you doing? Not telling me.
Yeah.
But the tears were flowing out of her. Her boss walks in. She's got to explain it to him. And she'd been working there for 20, 30 years. And he said, hold on for a second. And I started getting these crazy miracles. The first miracle was in about an hour, he says, hey, I got you into the Cleveland Clinic. And it turned out to be the day before I was supposed to go to the local hospital to have a heart catheter. The Cleveland Clinic, the heart hospital. So I'm like, going there. So I get to the Cleveland Clinic, and, they have hundreds of cardiologists there. And I got assigned a doctor, and I always kind of share this with everybody. I take a quick pause as I turn around. I read this to you because this is, they kind of look at what you have, what your issues are, and then assign you to a doctor. My doctor, his title was Director Heart Failure Intensive Care Unit, Section of Heart Failure and Cardiac Transplant Medicine. So this guy was serious,
Yeah.
So he had me go through all the tests. Since this is a real man show,
yeah,
I
please.
say to you, I had a moment of true clarity, and where I lost my humility because I've always been a guy's guy,
Yeah.
And that moment was, when they prep you for heart catheter, they have to prep you to get the catheter either in your wrist or in your groin. They're not sure. The wrist is the way to go. Recovery is much quicker, half the time. But if it doesn't take in the wrist, they do it through the groin. That's kind of the old way they do it.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is you go into a room and they put you on a Demerol drip, so you're kind of loopy but not totally out of it. And then when they're ready to do it, like 4 nurses come in and shave you top to bottom. And I remember sitting there like I just got shaved. I was kind of loopy. I'm taking like a look at myself shaved. I'm like, oh, that's funny. That was actually, so I'm like, wow, 4 strangers just shaved me. I got no humility left. That was my moment.
Right, yeah.
All right, so now I go into heart catheter, and I could hear him, saying, yes. And he comes down, he goes, well, you don't need a heart transplant, but you need surgery right away. You have 100% block in your right artery, 70% in a few other ones. So I'm all prepped up. I'm being wheeled in right at the doorstep. He looks at me, he says, hey, I've only offered this to one other person in 20 years, but would you consider a lifestyle change instead of doing surgery? And I'm like, yes. I didn't know what a lifestyle change was. I just knew I didn't want the surgery. Thinking of my dad, thinking of my uncles. So he says, hold on. He picks up his cell phone. He dials a couple digits. On the other end, it turns out his mentor was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn.
Oh, my gosh.
He hands me the phone. He's like, hey, Dr. Esselstyn, remember, never been to the Cleveland Clinic, never met my doctor, never knew who Caldwell Esselstyn was. And the guy said, just go on home and I'll give you a call in the morning. Cool. So we wrap up. A couple hours later, I drive back from Cleveland back to Michigan.
With no hair.
With no hair, but a good sense of humor and no humility. And sure enough, in the morning, he spends an hour talking to me. Now think back. This goes back quite a long time. So what was available was, I could read the China study. I could do how to prevent and reverse heart disease. There were like 2 cookbooks, but he said, go to the store, label read everything. You'll be shocked at how different names of salt and sugar and oil. And he says, you're giving up meat, dairy, and oil from this minute on. And I did. So from that second on, I have not had meat, dairy, or oil. And I thought to myself, well, thank you very much. So I thought to myself, I was on that gurney and I did this, like I did this as a kid growing up and never really kept the promise too often. Hey, God, if you get me out of this mess, I owe you one.
Yeah.
So I kept saying that to myself, like I was thinking I was going to have bypass surgery, but all of a sudden, when the miracles happened, I remembered that, and I said, hey, I got to give something back, and I'm going to this time. I really am. Initially, I thought what I'd do is I didn't know how to cook the food. I wasn't a cook. I wasn't a chef.
Yeah.
So I went to the Esselson's cooking class. Let's say the bill was $800. I tried to expense it through Blue Cross Blue Shield. They denied me. I said, oh, this is my mission. This is my give back. I'm going to make sure there's a pay code at Blue Cross Blue Shield. So that way anybody in the future that doesn't want to spend $125,000 for bypass surgery, they can go take a cooking class for $800. Blue Cross Blue Shield should like it. I like it. So unfortunately, I went up to the 7 different layers and they denied me because I have to work with the Michigan legislature. And I did not want to do that. Yeah. In the meantime, I had, I wasn't just had a 100% block on my right artery. I had an enlarged heart, leaky valves, scarsidosis to the right side of the artery. I had a block, I had heart murmur. I was a mess. So basically, I was on complete bed rest for 60 days. And the only thing I would basically do is I'd sleep all day and then I would cook and then go back. And it was not a happy life, let me tell you. I'm crazily active, and it was like, thank God it was drug induced, because if it was me just laying down for 16 hours, I couldn't do it. In the meantime, I thought to myself, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll put a $20 ad in the paper and I'll just say, hey, look, this is what's happened to me. Because in those 60 days, I started losing like 20, 30 pounds. The angina went away in like 7-8 days. So that was amazing. And the craziest thing is, as crazy as the angina going away, was that in about 14 days, all the foods I swore I didn't like growing up, like the vegetable side, because I promised I would eat whatever I had to eat for 14 days, see how I feel. Yeah. My taste buds started to change, where the foods I grew up not liking, I tolerated a lot more. I will never tell anybody that I love them. I do not. I like them, though. And that's good enough, because, now I eat to live instead of live to eat kind of mentality. So I put an ad in the paper, and within 2 days, I had 20 people coming to my house. What's so cool about it is I'm still in touch with them today. And then I did it again. And I'm like, whoa, I'm onto something here. People need heart health support, and they could do it through nutritional education. Yeah. So then I called the big 3 hospitals here in Michigan. I said, give me an interventional cardiologist, a lifestyle cardiologist. Give me 3 names. Well, the same name cropped up. It was Dr. Joel Kahn. I have never heard of him, never met him, but I figured, okay, I'll call him first. I met him, and he was all in. He said we could do it at Beaumont Hospital, and that's what started the creation of the plant-based nutrition support group. And then, and then let me just take you like in a big leap. The milestones of them was that A, we created medical course material. B, we had like 3 or 4 opportunities that I thought would be just like earth changing, where General Motors called up and said, we need your help. And we got to the highest level, and unfortunately politically couldn't do it. We worked with the Beaumont hospitals, and we thought that they were going to change their meal plans, and at the last second, they couldn't do it. But at the end, we would have events every single month, and it would be a combination of culinary events. We would have speaker events where literally 500 to 1,000 people would show up, and it was a vibe like I've never felt in my life. Just a humming and excitement. And it was like these people knew every month they're going to see like-minded people in one place. Yes. And then it gave me an opportunity to meet all the greats all the heroes I grew up, worshiping, and they would come into town, they give their talk. I take them to a bunch of medical schools, and that's how it was for like 10 years until COVID. And when COVID hit, then all of a sudden, think about the majority of our members were like 60 and older. I put a hard stop. It was like early February, and we pivoted to online and Zoom. And, I will say COVID helped us older people learn how to use Zoom. So that's for sure. Go COVID, right? No. Yeah. Okay. So So now here we are today, and today, I'm proud to say we are still in business. We are the only national support organization. We have a membership. I'll tell you what you get for that, and it's a whopping $20 a month, and it's on sale right now for $14. Ooh.
Nice.
You just go to www.pbnsg.org, sign up. And what you get for that is all the speaker events. We still have
Mm-hmm.
multiple speaker events. We
Yep.
still have culinary events. And we shifted from what we had community groups, we had 54 at our peak, to now we have like 15 specific support groups. So if you've got heart disease, obesity, diabetes, whatever the modality is, or it could be like, a single parent group,
Mm-hmm.
bringing up your child with plant-based nutrition. So we have a variety of different groups. And for $20, you could see one group, you could see all the groups. Plus,
Yeah.
we have recorded every single meeting from every single speaker and every single culinary event from day one. So we've got a
Mm-hmm.
vast library so you could explore, and look into, always looking for, help, along the way with volunteerism. But yeah, so that's kind of my long story.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's such a powerful movement. I hate to see you have to go through all the troubles that you had to, but it even further solidified your journey. I mean, I know mine wasn't as drastic as that, but I've been sold just like you. After the first 30 to 60 days, I just knew it was the right path. So let's give out a little bit more advice for some other people that are trying to start their plant-based businesses and grow them on that front. So what advice would you give to people trying to start the more nonprofit organization, focusing on health, nutrition, trying to be some of that change and support for the communities?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to, I have no initials at the end of my name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what that means is, I spend a lot of time reading about the benefits of nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, when you're working in a community environment, there's a lot of questions that are asked of you, and they were asked of me. And while I would always have to preface it by saying, I'm not a doctor, but this is my opinion, it was like
Mm-hmm.
a reel that I repeated all the time. It might be important to, find out if there's a dietitian, a nutritionist, maybe a lifestyle doctor in your area, and
Mm-hmm.
connect with them first. And just say, listen, maybe I want to create a community group in my town. And if I do, would you be alongside me and be able to answer some of the medical questions? Because I can't really do it, and I don't feel comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's not, something to consider. The other thing is, now there's so many different whole food plant-based cookbooks. We have one called Perfectly Plant-Based. It's
Mm-hmm.
still, I think, the only no oil cookbook, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
variety of cookbooks. And let's face it, I mean, we would have every meeting at every small group, because that's what you're kind of talking about, a community
Yeah.
small group.
Mm-hmm.
And we would always do something like we'd spend like 10, 15 minutes of what's new, what's your challenges, and we spent a few minutes on, the host would say, I got to give you a 10-minute presentation on XYZ. And
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the time was a potluck. Because and
Very
the catch
nice.
was always that we would say is, if you're, when you bring food, bring 10 recipe cards of what you made. So
Yeah,
someone could, if they like it, they could take it home and enjoy it themselves.
that's awesome.
And then we play around with like, let's create stuff that's 5 items or 5 ingredients in 5 minutes. Make it in
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, or 10
Yeah,
items in 10 ingredients. So,
yeah,
there's a lot of creativity, but like anything, the human race, we love our food.
yeah.
So my thought is that if you connect up with a science nutritional type person, if you put an ad in the local paper, go through Meetup,
Mm-hmm.
create an environment of learning, caring about what's new,
Mm-hmm.
what challenges are you up to, and lastly, end it with food, and it can be
Absolutely.
a great start.
Yeah. No, that's some great tips there. So let's flip it around. How are you measuring the impact of your organization, and what advice would you give for others that are getting started on this journey on how do they measure the impact of the programs and your advocacy efforts?
Well, I mean, we're talking about like doing analytics and metrics, and I must
Mm-hmm.
admit, like, I'm good in a lot of areas, but I leave that to my IT guy to share the
Yep.
metrics, because I just like, my head's exploding every day on other areas of trying to grow the thing. And I
Yeah.
just know that like right now, we just got granted $10,000 a month in Google ads. So we're going to
Hmm.
have to keep a click rate at a certain amount. Otherwise we
Yeah.
lose it. So that's
Yep.
up to him to make sure that is done. But as far as, like I look at growth, for example, and it's, it was really easy to open the front doors and welcome 500 or 1,000 people. And we could just measure and say, well, we had this speaker and we got this results. And this is the
Hmm.
revenue we got because the price was always the same.
Yeah.
It's a little different when you're totally doing everything remotely. To me, it's based on we introduced a membership, which, it was free. Everything I did
Hmm.
was free for 10 years. But
Yeah.
like anything else, my board of directors is my wife. I don't mean
Hmm.
that with the organization, but in my heart and
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
And it was the point where, you said, I've paid enough. I've done enough. I gotta make it self-sustaining. So that
Hmm.
membership. So I'm proud to say that it was just this month that we finally, for the first time in 3 years, broke even. So that was,
Yeah.
oh, thank you very much. So, I mean, like now we're hoping to lift off and grow because money allows us to do more things. And I've got a lot on that list right now that we got to do. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
So, talk to us about the future. What is the
Ooh.
next year or two look like for Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group? Do you have some other initiatives in mind?
Ooh.
Lay it on us.
All right. Well, I got a man goosebumps right here. You can see them
Nice. I
live
like it.
and they're growing. All right. So I had an epiphany and everyone has these moments where you're like, oh, wow, something spoke to me, like, what am I going to do because something spoke to me? Am I going to just forget about it or am I
Hmm.
going to do something about it? I like doing stuff about it and see where it takes us. So,
Hmm.
I admit, I'm going to tell everybody I'm a Trekkie from the old days, and I was in the middle of the night, live long and prosper, man. And so I was watching the one, and I'll just, for Trekkies out there,
Uh-huh.
it was with Jean-Luc Picard and the Q. The Q was an omnipotent being, and Jean-Luc Picard had his individuality, and they were
Hmm.
always bantering back and forth. And the omnipotent Q says, "Wow, you think you're so independent and you're doing so well? Let me show you what your future is." And boom, shoots him
Yeah.
100 million light years somewhere. And that's the first time they saw the Borg, which was
Yeah.
like arch enemies in the future to
Hmm.
multiple series of Star Trek. And the
Yeah.
difference was they were like humans that were assimilated with AI attachments to them, and they worked together as a cohesive group.
Hmm.
And then I said, like, that's it. Now I'm going to peel it a little bit for you. I, I admitted that I've been chasing the heroes,
Hmm.
rightfully so, for
Hmm.
about 10, 11 years. And
Hmm.
you know who they are. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be the Campbells, the Esselsons, the Gregor McDougalls, Bernards. And there's a list. There may be 10 or 15, give or
Hmm.
take.
Yep.
And like, I was always in awe of their knowledge, the fact that they would come speak to my organization and others. They gave a lot of their time freely.
Hmm.
But what I noticed was they didn't work and didn't play well together. I don't want to get into the specifics. I happen to know them, but
Hmm.
I don't, it doesn't matter. They weren't sharing ideas. Think about it. Each one has a different point of view.
Hmm.
95% of what they believe in, they all agreed in. But they
Hmm.
just, they had so many years, in the dark ages of plant-based nutrition that feelings were hurt or things were
Yeah.
done. And now they're much older and they can't forgive, forget, and move on. They just can't. And it's okay. I mean, people are like that, but
Hmm.
I'm not.
Hmm.
And I realized right then that we have to look at that next level of people out there that want to make a world of difference. And it would be much younger, more
Hmm.
diverse, outspoken like me, and risk takers like me as well to sit there and say, it's time that we pivot. That
That's
all
right.
being said, I started writing open letters. And if you're on my email list, you've seen them. And I did basically a call to action. I said,
That's
it's
how we met. You sent out that letter and I reached
oh,
out to you.
one of
So
my best days ever.
thank you. Thank you
Really,
for
one of my
doing that.
best days. Yeah, by the
It
way,
goes. I mean, it just goes back. Like I know this is the Plant Based on Fire podcast, but like our overarching thing is real men eat plants, and that is trying to get more men to be vulnerable and admit they need some help and come into this plant-based world that we already are familiar with. So thank you for doing that. And tell us, keep going. Sorry.
No, that's cool. I like freestyle it. Go. And
Yeah.
I got to admit something to you. Like you can see, real man right there. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't play around. And the fact is that I actually said to Brian, I said, like, dude, you're going after that 10% segment of men who eat plant-based.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll be your ambassador. Like, if you need me to connect with somebody, anybody, I'm your guy. And this is how it works, because we're going to collaborate and that we're going to be a shining example to all others. So
That's right.
we have created something called, and this is the first time anybody's going to, well, actually, this is in the future. I like this. So we're going to have our meeting September 25th. I'm hoping that everyone will hear about it. I know this will be recorded in October. So the plan here is, an open letter went out. I've now received 30 connections of organizations and individuals who said, you are right. It's time to pivot. We have to work together. We need to have one voice. We need, and the idea is this: if we create like an alliance, think about we'll use the example of a big wheel with 30 different spokes. If we make sure the wheel is healthy, it's going to lift and keep the spokes in place.
Yep.
It's going to lift all the organizations. So it's interesting because as I spoke and met people like Brian for the very first time, I said this question. I said, I've met all these people. They all have 5 things in common. The first thing they have in common is everyone needs additional funding. I do. Everyone needs additional funding. The next thing is that they want a resource share. I mean, why should anybody have to recreate something? No, they should have an area that we could share our resources. People could be resources. Information could be resources. But if all you'd have to do is send something to the Sage Circle Alliance, which is the name, and then somebody will respond with the answer. Boom! You don't have to spend hours thinking about it. The other thing is that everyone who's part of this is all stretched super thin. Like we are just working our butts off every day for the mission. But no matter what, we're stretched thin. The other one is, and this is kind of a dicey one a little bit because no one likes negativity. I don't. But everyone's felt pain along the way. Like, hey, life is full of pleasure and pain. We all know that.
Yep.
But this has been like specific plant-based pain, because it could be you put an ad in the paper, one person shows up. That's painful. You want more. Whatever it might be, we felt a little pain along the way. But what binds us all together is all 30 of these people, and I'm hoping it could be hundreds. We all are passionate, high integrity, and we all believe that we all have to work together to make it happen.
That's right.
This is where I'm spending my time, because I know that if I create, along with Meryl Fury, who is working with me from plant-based nutrition movement out of Chicago, that if we build it correctly, we could raise everybody up at the same time. That's the plan. Wish me luck.
Good luck, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Hit us one more time. How do we get in touch with you? How do we join your community? What's the address and social media handles?
No, I appreciate that. Okay, so everything is just, if you hit up plant-based PBNSG, you'll get all the social media pieces. Okay.
Okay.
But if you want to reach us directly, and I'm going to do something I don't usually do. Hey, by the way, on my last podcast, I showed how to inject my stomach with a cholesterol drug. Guy said, "I've never seen that." That was Glenn.
Okay.
No one's ever done that. I said, I'm going to do it. So I'll give you another one. I'm going to give everyone www.pbnsg.org. And that will go to a connect where me and myself and a few employees could answer. You have something that you want to, be part of. You want to have a quick conversation or talk. Paul at pbnsg.org. Give me a shout.
Awesome.
All right.
So reach out if you're starting your business, want to get some advice from somebody who's been doing this for a long, long time, and join that community. There's lots of like-minded individuals there looking to change their lives and stuff. Thank you so much, Paul, for being on the show with us.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. And let me just say one last little item with that SCA Sage Circle Alliance. There's going to be a component, which is going to be an environmental component. I've wanted personally to do it forever. But when I look around, and now that I'm a father of 3 boys and grandkids, and I look around, it's scary a little bit to me. So we have to touch the environment just make awareness. So that will all be part of it. So, but thank you. This has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. There's wildfires everywhere. There was 4 tropical storms in the Atlantic and 1 in the Pacific all at the same time.
Well,
It's just
I
mind
witnessed
blowing.
last
So,
year. I got a place in Fort Myers, and I saw firsthand what Ian did, and
yeah.
that's scary stuff, man. And I think we're getting as many as we used to, but just so much more intense. And
Yeah.
we have a part, we have a play in this, us humans. We do,
Yeah.
and we have to do our part for our kids. We just have
And
to.
people don't realize because they shift the numbers, but Glenn's absolutely right. Animal agriculture is a strong leading contributor to it all. So.
Sure is.
Well, that is all the time we have for this episode of Plant Based on Fire. Thank you again so much, Paul, for being here and sharing your thoughts and insights and experiences with our community. Until next time, everybody, keep those fires burning.
All right.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Plant Based on Fire. We hope you enjoyed learning about the innovative plant-based businesses we featured today and got inspired to support them on their journey. Remember, plant-based eating isn't just a trend. It's a way of life that benefits your health, the environment, and animals. By choosing plant-based foods, you're making a positive impact on the world and helping to create a better and more compassionate future. If you want to join the Real Men Eat Plants community and get even more resources to help you go and stay plant-based, check out our blog, podcasts, and 30-day challenge at realmeneatplants.com. Thank you for tuning in to Plant Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us a review, and let us know what you think of this episode. Don't forget to tag us at Plant Based on Fire when you share this episode in your preferred social media. Wish to be a guest? We need to know about your plant-based business. Email us at pbof@realmeneatplants.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thank you to our guests and to you, our listeners, for your support, and see you next time.